President Trump returned to the White House yesterday. And most of the mainstream media, of course, all the mainstream media coverage is, the stories you're going to get is two different stories, right? If you're going to watch Fox News, you're going to get one story, which is, the president, Superman, discharged from Walter Reed, returns to the White House, right? He's the man. You watch CNN, you go to CNN.com, you're going to see this. Trump makes reckless White House return despite warnings. So it's going to go one of two ways if you pay attention to the mainstream media. Donald Trump, but the real story to me is that Donald Trump spent the entire week touting the medical care that he got. And I think that's the real story here. So before we get to that, President Trump shows up last night at the White House, takes off his mask. Everyone freaks out. That's the story. And he takes off his mask. He's going to endanger the lives of the butlers and the valets that work at the White House, which is a valid argument. But that's the only story you kept hearing yesterday from CNN. You have Dr. Sanjay Gupta weighing in on what the White House doctors said. The White House doctors said he was okay to go back to the White House and quarantine there. So you have a television doctor telling you that he disagrees with them. Okay. Then on top of that, you have most of the mainstream media just talking about how he's taking off his mask. He's going to endanger people. And that's the narrative you're going to hear. He got up on, I saw Michael Beschloss, a historian for NBC News, talking about how we've never seen this before. A president going up on a balcony, waving to everybody. I think it was the Truman balcony, by the way. Democratic balcony. Waving to everybody. We've never seen this before, Michael Beschloss wrote. This is what you see from authoritarian regimes. Do you remember George W. Bush going to Ground Zero, standing on the rubble? Literally, they were pulling bodies out of where he was standing. And he had a bullhorn, saber rattling, encouraging us to go into war, basically, after 9/11. And everyone applauded him. Politicians and the media, everyone did. He had a 92% approval rating. So we've never seen this before. So the president comes out last night, delivers a message. And of course, everyone wants to parse every moment of what he had to say. This is what the president had to say when he arrived back at the White House.
I just left Walter Reed Medical Center, and it's really something very special. The doctors, the nurses, the first responders, and I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently. And you're going to beat it. I didn't feel so good. And 2 days ago, I could have left 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I felt great, like better than I have in a long time. I said just recently, better than 20 years ago. Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen. We have the greatest country in the world. We're going back to work. We're going to be out front. As your leader, I had to do that. I knew there's danger to it, but I had to do it. I stood out front. I led. Nobody that's a leader would not do what I did. And I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay. And now I'm better, and maybe I'm immune. I don't know. But don't let it dominate your lives. Get out there. Be careful. We have the best medicines in the world, and it all happened very shortly, and they're all getting approved. And the vaccines are coming momentarily. Thank you very much. And Walter Reed, what a group of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter Reed. Amazing group of people. So that was the president. And then instead of having a meaningful discussion about this virus and where the president was the past few days, of course, the mainstream media wants to get out there and tweet about, well, look, he looked like he was out of breath. A fish. Like that's what the mainstream media wants to talk about. He's gasping for air. Can't handle it. That misses the real story here. To me, the real shame of this is a missed opportunity of discussing the health care that the president got while he was there. I think David Sirota hit it right on the head in a tweet yesterday. He said, you'll notice that Trump didn't check himself into a for-profit hospital. Facing a life-threatening infection, the president who rips on socialism decided to check himself into a government-run, government-sponsored, government-controlled healthcare facility. He spent the entire week, of course, talking about all of the best medicine that he's received, the president did. Here's the missed opportunity for Democrats. Here's the missed opportunity for the liberal media, which is not going to talk about it. They'd rather focus on whether or not he's gasping. And where is he? What kind of mask is he wearing? Is he infecting other people in the White House? That's the story. Which is, look, that's a fine story. We should be concerned about the people that work at the White House, just like I'm concerned about the Secret Service people that got piled into that limo while he was driving that limo full of people. In an airtight, sealed car, by the way. We learned that it was hermetically sealed. So those people were trapped in there with a deadly, contagious President Trump. Yeah, so that's a legitimate story. But it overlooks the bigger story. And this is the stuff you won't hear on MSNBC and hear anyone talking about this, just in passing. But they're certainly not going to do it in context of Joe Biden. The president spent all weekend talking about how he got the best medical care in America, a socialized hospital system that he was in. This is not going to be mentioned by Democratic politicians. It's not going to be mentioned by the millionaire MSNBC pundits. President Trump doesn't check him into a for-profit system. He spends the entire weekend praising everything about this hospital and the care that he's received at the hands of taxpayers. And yet he's paid nothing in taxes. Think about this for a second. If we look at the amount of costs associated with his hospital trip. Now, yes, he is the president of the United States. He deserves the best treatment possible. But guess what? So do all Americans who actually work for a living and pay into this system, pay into the federal government. Here's a person who hasn't paid taxes in so many years, hasn't paid into this system. So if we add up, let's just think about this hospital visit for a second. A helicopter ride, a presidential suite. Think about it. Private suite, a team of doctors, an emergency helicopter ride. And he's telling Americans not to be afraid of COVID. Great, that's fine. If you have an additional $2,500 or $5,000 as a deductible in order to go to the hospital because you have some sort of other issue, insurance companies, I know people love to say in the chat, people will say, yeah, but I've not seen anyone being turned away for COVID. And you're right in many respects. But guess what? They are being denied insurance coverage because the insurance companies are saying, how do we know it's COVID? How do we know that this wasn't some other condition that you had? And these individuals are now being saddled with these medical bills. So Vice President Biden, I think, missed a golden opportunity last night. Vice President Biden was at this town hall last night. And instead of, he had a, first of all, it was like a wet kiss for him, this whole town hall thing last night. It was like, as I've seen it described, as like a big Joe Biden infomercial. You had these easy softball questions by NBC and these quote unquote undecided voters who were there last night. There's some question as to whether or not they were in fact even undecided voters. But you have Joe answering a question about the healthcare system. And one of the things that he says, he missed a huge opportunity to talk about this disparity in our healthcare system. And instead he falls, this is his response. My jaw hit the floor when I saw that this is how he talked about President Trump's hospitalization over the past 3 days.
World, and I'm happy it was available to him. It should be available to the President of the United States of America. But the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of people here in this audience, your cameramen, if God forbid something happened to them, they don't have that access to that care. So it's comparing sort of apples and oranges a little bit.
It's just apples and oranges a little bit. And that's it. Let's move on to other questions. I don't want to talk about Obamacare. As expensive and as a mess Obamacare is. I don't want to talk about how, as Democrats, you failed to talk about any sort of meaningful healthcare platform during the Democratic National Convention, put forward any sort of meaningful Medicare for all proposal, anything like that. No, let's just move on to some other questions, shall we? Or we could actually have a big national discussion right now about the need for affordable health care in this country, where people aren't having to file for bankruptcy over medical bills, which is happening. Where people shouldn't have to worry about paying or going to the hospital because of some pre-existing condition that they have, and now they get saddled with this virus. Yes, 210,000 people have died from this thing, and President Trump's out there saying, don't let this get you down. Don't worry about it. I'll tell you what medical miracle we have on our hands that the president had access to in a moment. But instead of answering the question the way that Biden just did, what if he answered it like this? Asked almost the exact same question and the type of healthcare that we should have in this country. And watch how CNN, with their disregard for progressives in this country, watch just their disregard from their corporate overlords and framing this question. Like, do you wish you wouldn't have been called? Do you wish you wouldn't have called yourself this? Watch this question from Anderson Cooper and how he hits a home run with this response. Watch this.
Portray yourself differently as a successor of Franklin Roosevelt and as a New Dealer. Do you ever regret labeling yourself a democratic socialist?
No, I am what I am, and what democratic socialism is about to me is understanding that we have in many ways, Anderson, a socialist society today. But it is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us, we have socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor and for other people. When Donald Trump was a private businessman, he received $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury housing. That's called socialism for the rich. When Amazon, one of the largest, the most profitable corporations in America, doesn't pay a nickel in federal income taxes last year, that's called socialism for the rich. When we give tens of billions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks to the fossil fuel industry, whose product is destroying our planet, that's called socialism for the rich. What I want to do is bring government programs to help working families. We are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. And yet we're spending twice as much per capita on health care as do the people of other countries. We're the only major country not to have paid family and medical leave. We're giving tax breaks to billionaires when 500,000 people are sleeping out on the streets.
Imagine if he would have answered the question that way. Yeah, you might not agree with everything, but he has a golden opportunity at the beginning of this town hall event to talk about the disparity that Americans are facing in their health care. As an industrialized nation, we are a joke. We are a joke. We have great doctors in this country, and for those who can afford it, and for those people that have to be saddled with enormous hospital bills and debt. I mean, we tallied this up, by the way. It would have been upwards of $20,000 or more for that type of private care that the president got. Helicopter ride. I'm being conservative. $2,500. Think about a private suite, private hospital stay, helicopter ride. Think how many Americans don't have insurance, can't afford it. And Obamacare, yeah, it's a disaster. Remember, it was a Republican plan born out of Mitt Romney's Massachusetts. Nevertheless, we are a joke when it comes to healthcare. That's the type of discussion we should be having. And how the president gets this type of care, and he's able to get this experimental, he might have been the first person, according to reports, to receive this 3-drug cocktail. First time ever. He received Regeneron's experimental antibody therapy, which may reduce levels of coronavirus and has shown promising results in a trial involving 275 patients. But the treatment has not yet received emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration. The biotech company Regeneron said it provided the drug after receiving a compassionate use request from Trump's doctors. But of course, there are 210,000 Americans who've died over the past few months. They have no access to this type of drug or this kind of treatment. But within 24 hours of requesting this drug, it was there, and they administered it, on top of 2 other drug cocktails. Reports are this morning that he is probably the first person on planet Earth to have received this type of treatment. He said in that little speech, "I feel better than I have in 20 years." Do you have access to that type of health care? I just find it ironic, hypocritical. President Trump said, "I've learned a lot about COVID. I've learned a lot. This is a school that I should be, I went to real school here. I went to real school. This isn't book school," as he described it. "I went to real school." Okay. What did you learn? Did you learn that this socialized hospital system that you crap all over on a regular basis and want to label Vice President Biden as some sort of a socialist, which he's not, he's a centrist? This system that's in place in many other countries that have far better health care than the United States, lower death rates, higher value of living. How does that experience for you? Was it good? Walter Reed, you keep saying it's amazing. Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine how well this could work for so many millions of Americans if we only had access to what you had access to. Here's an opportunity for the Democrats to get out there and speak about universal health care, Medicare for all. Get out there on the podium and say it, but no, they won't. You know why? Because they're all bought and sold by corporate corporate media, all these big corporations that don't want universal health care. On the very same day we see this, very same day, I saw someone in the chat saying, well, how is this different than the mainstream media? Well, you're not going to see the mainstream media, which is controlled by these companies on Wall Street, talking about these stories on their shows. Good luck finding this on Morning Joe. The U.S. healthcare and pharmaceutical ad spending will increase over 14% this year. They're about to pump in $9.53 billion in spending. Think about how ridiculous this is for a moment, where they don't have this in other countries. When you flip on the news or television in a lot of other countries, you don't see ads for pharmaceuticals. They need to run ads to get you to talk to your doctor about taking Zoloft. They need to spend $9.53 billion because they have all these politicians bought and sold. In other countries, it's illegal. Drugs are incredibly, less expensive in other countries. Go to Europe, for instance. What you pay for medicine at a pharmacy. Flip on the TV and see billions of dollars in ad spend every night. You watch the 6 o'clock news, you watch Lester Holt or any of those guys. Every commercial is for a new drug. And the last 30 seconds of every commercial may cause, bleeding, urinary tract infection, severe panic, even suicide in some patients. Put these 30-second disclaimers on the bottom. Live your best life. Acid reflux. Yeah, how about you want to stop acid reflux? Stop eating cheesesteaks every 5 seconds. Billions of dollars that pumps through this system. Wake up. Wake up. And these big media companies, they love it. They're going to spend so much on these ads on their websites. I'm surprised when I was on CNN's website. Let's look around here. I didn't see any here because I kind of clipped it so you couldn't see ads, but I go there right now. I bet you there's like drug ads on their website. Here's Fox. I clipped it too on Fox's, but I bet if you go there, you flip around, you're going to see ads for drug companies and all sorts of other things. Because they're making money off this stuff. They're going to spend $9.53 billion in digital ad spend. A 14% increase. So get ready to see billions more of this stuff. No, someone says in the chat, don't doctors suggest the drug that's best for you? Come on, man.
Come on, man.
They don't know. Have you ever talked to a doctor? They are so freaking busy. They rely on these pharmaceutical reps. Honestly, hand to the heavens. Most of them do. You're going to find great doctors. But most of the time, these pharmaceutical reps, they get like a 25-year-old blonde girl to be a pharmaceutical rep, go door to door, go clinic to clinic, set up meetings. They drop off all of their little samples and their pens and their samples from their different drug companies. They try to get like 5 minutes to meet with a doctor. I know this firsthand from talking to doctors on this. And I've also talked to pharmaceutical reps. This is how they do it. They have all these samples in their car and they drive around They used to. I don't know how they're doing it in the age of COVID. And they'll meet with these doctors and they'll basically spin them a yarn. Oh, you got to try this. This is the new Zoloft. This is the new antidepressant. This is the new acid reflux. Here's how it works. I'm not saying doctors don't then do their own independent research on it. I'm sure they do. But if you're handed a boatload of samples and free pens and things to put on the desk and little calendars that you can tear off and give out to your patients, you ever go into a doctor's office? There's all sorts of free stuff you can take home with you that has drug advertisement on it. You can put it on your refrigerator. A little calendar with I don't know, Adderall. I don't even know what drugs are. But you know what I'm saying? That's exactly what happens. And so this is the way that they get their education on a lot of these pharmaceuticals. It's sad. It's disgusting. But this is why it's a $1 billion, $1 trillion industry. And there's a race to find the COVID cure. Why do you think so many companies right now are racing to get a vaccine? Out of humanitarian reasons? We already know what they're planning to charge for in the United States, but we missed a huge opportunity last night or over this past few days from the mainstream media to have a discussion about healthcare, how this virus affects so many people, but beyond just the virus itself, just the inequities in our healthcare system. And Joe Biden punted, had a huge opportunity, but guess what? Democrats don't want it either. So if you're watching my show right now, you're like, wait a minute, is he against Biden? Is he against Trump? I'm not against anybody. I'm just for the truth. These two-party Democrats and Republicans don't give a rat's behind. They're all part of the same problem. It's all part of one big group, and the mainstream media feeds this beast. That's why we need a true third-party system in this country, that to have other voices, where other politicians, who are not career politicians, who are people who aren't bought and sold by the pharmaceutical company. I mean, Elizabeth Warren just came out yesterday and threw her weight behind a candidate who's been literally paid for by the healthcare industry. Elizabeth Warren just said, I'm supporting you. I forget his last name, Phil, off the top of my head. I'm throwing my support behind you. It's been great for the people of Massachusetts. Yeah. He's also been paid for by the pharmaceutical company, the healthcare industry. It's invasive. It's like mold. They're all covered in it. All of them. 210,000 dead Americans who don't have access to that healthcare, and the millions of others who now have COVID as a pre-existing condition, who are saddled with all kinds of. Just tell me in the chat right now. I want to see anyone watching right now. Tell me in the chat right now, how many of you have had to go through some sort of a health scare in your family, have had to make a choice between paying the bills or paying those medical bills, putting food on the table or paying those medical bills, where you've had to file bankruptcy, or you've just chosen not to go to the doctor because you can't afford it. You'd rather not. I can't afford an ambulance ride, so I just won't do it. We're the only industrialized country in the world that acts like this. And yet we've got a $24 trillion economy, and we can't pay for health care for our citizens. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage.
Come on, man.
It's true, Joe, but you missed your chance last night. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel, because we keep focusing on spreading the truth here. I'm not going to be bought and sold by these guys. I don't answer to anyone, but we've got to get the story out about this healthcare issue. The fact that I even hear from relatives of mine, extended family, that say, I just can't afford to go and do that. I can't afford to go get that medicine. I can't afford to do that. Is this America?